Good morning and happy Valentine's Day. This month's theme is desire, and being the intern, I'm the lucky one who gets to preach about desire on Valentine's Day. Easy, right? Desire makes me think of longing, yearning. We all have a desire and a yearning. We all have a longing to belong. Humans have the need to belong to something bigger than themselves. It's a need that is hardwired into the human brain. According to evolutionary scientists, before humanity had developed civilization, staying in a group was the need for basic survival. If one was part of a large group, large prey could be hunted down, labor could be divided so that tasks could be done faster, and an individual would be less susceptible to attack by larger predators. As anthropology studies civilizations and finds that cultures have always had issues with who belongs, sociology looks at individuals and our needs. The very basis of human development is bonding with a parent right after we're born. If not for the feeding and sheltering of another adult, none of us would be here, as newborn humans do not know how to feed and protect themselves. When an adult cares for that new life, by giving love, nutrition, and shelter, that baby thrives. When one of those basic needs aren't met, it can literally change how the brain functions. Child development researcher Nathan Fox, who works at the University of Maryland, stated in an article from 2012 on livescience.com what the consequences of neglect and institutionalism can do to a developing brain. And these are his words. They found that an early institutionalization changed both the structure and function of the brain. Any time spent in an institution shrunk the volume of gray matter, or brain cell bodies, in the brain. Kids who stayed in the orphanages instead of going to foster care had less white matter, or the fat-covered tracks between brain cell bodies, than kids who, at a young age, moved in with families. Staying in an orphanage instead of foster care also resulted in lower quality brain activity as measured in EEG. Teachers indicated these same kids were also worse off socially. I recall a stark lesson about parental nurture when I was just a teenager. Even as young people, we intuitively know how important it is to belong. In the aftermath of the fall of communist rule in Eastern Europe, specifically Romania, under the rule of Nicolae Ceausescu, due to his own policies and lack of access to health care for young mothers, the birth rate soared and many were unable to care for the children that they gave birth to. Many were institutionalized, and the extent of the abuse of these children suffered wasn't revealed until after Ceausescu's death in 1989. I can recall watching the report that ABC's 2020 did the following spring, and watching these forgotten children as they banged their heads into the crib rails because no adult was paying attention to them. These children literally were not held and comforted and suffered as a result. In watching that report, even though I was still an adolescent, it taught me the power of the human touch. We literally can't live without it. Unfortunately, this problem has not gone away completely. In 2010, there were still approximately 19,000 children still living in state-run orphanages. While the conditions are reported to be better, two British charities have the goal of closing all state-run institutions in Romania by 2020. Let's hope they make that goal. Now, we know that ancient humans needed belonging, and young children needed belonging. But what about the rest of us? Beginning in 1943, psychologist Abraham Maslow developed what is now commonly called the hierarchy of needs. This basic idea behind his theory is that once certain basic needs are met, a person is then motivated to move up to the next set of needs. If you have ever worked with children, you see this play out. If a child is hungry, they won't be able to concentrate on what you wish them to do because all they will be motivated to do is to find food to satiate their hunger. Now, I won't go over all 5 steps that Maslow outlines, but I will point out that according to him, the need for belonging ranks just above the need for food and shelter. Now, just think about that for a moment. Our need to belong is as basic as our need to eat, breathe, find shelter, and sleep. We all know on some level what it's like to be pushed away, left out, excluded. If given time, we could all reflect back to a point in our lives when we were explicitly or implicitly told we don't belong, either in a larger group or with just one other person. It hurts. Now, today being Valentine's Day, instead of cards or chocolates, I bring you the gift of a story. But not just any story, a love affair. My deep connection to Unitarian Universalism has been as meaningful for my life as any relationship as I've ever had. And I sincerely hope you find love in this faith as well. Now, once upon a time, there was a General Assembly in Salt Lake City in Utah, 1999. I didn't know what to expect from General Assembly. I had only started going to a UU church in the spring of 1997, so the UU experience was still very new to me. I was nervous because so far, UU meant my little church in Ellsworth, Maine. When my wife and I decided that we were going to go, I had some anxiety as to what I might be getting myself into. Was I going to be indoctrinated? Was there going to be some kind of strange ceremony that would scare me away from the church as I was still harboring suspicions of organized religion? Was something going to happen that would kill my UU buzz? On the first day of GA, it became obvious to me that the answer was no. What proved this to me was when the banner parade started. Living in New England, there is a UU church around every corner, but when the banners started coming, it didn't stop for what felt like a very long time. I realized for the first time that I belonged to something greater than myself. After banner parade ended, the UU minister, who was then serving a church in Denver, gave the opening remarks. He pointed out that the two teens who had committed the acts of violence at Columbine High School were considered outcasts and were isolated from their peers, and that due to the fact that UUs are an open and affirming religion, that this religion saves lives. And for the rest of my time at GA, I sat in awe that there was a religion and an organization that held the same values that I did. It was the first time in my life that I truly felt I belonged to something that was outside of my family of origin. I had tried other organizations up to that point. I was heavily involved in after-school activities when I was in high school, and I was part of a Star Trek fan club for many years. And yes, in case you're wondering, I do have a uniform that was made by my mother. But there in Utah, Unitarian Universalism affirmed what I believed and who I was in ways that no other organizations ever had. Now, today is New Member Sunday, which means the individuals who have chosen to sign the book will become official members of this church. In fact, we'll have had a whole ceremony that officially welcomes these individuals into this congregation and will therefore become part of the UCE family. Which leads me to this question. When did you know that you belonged here? What was it that made you realize that this was the religious place for you? Think about that. Also, think about our first principle. Do you remember what the first one is? It is the inherent worth and dignity of every person. It's no mistake that of the principles, this is the one that is listed first. When a person joins a UU church, a traditional gift used to be a book titled The Unitarian Universalist Pocket Guide. In that guide, Reverend Dr. Rebecca Ann Parker describes the first principle in this way, and these are her words. Reverence and respect for human nature is at the core of Unitarian Universalist faith. We believe that all the dimensions of our being carry the potential to do good. We celebrate the gifts of being human, our intelligence and capacity for observation and reason, our senses and ability to appreciate beauty, our creativity, our feelings and emotions. We cherish our bodies as well as our souls. We can use our gifts to offer love, to work for justice, to heal injury, to create pleasure for ourselves and others. Unitarian Universalists affirm the inherent worth and dignity of each person as a given of faith, an unshakable conviction calling us to self-respect and respect for others. By inspecting everyone's inherent worth and dignity, it's a way to be inclusive instead of being exclusive. So, come tomorrow morning as you're going to work, taking a walk, getting your mail, or just doing the mundane things that we all have to do on a daily basis, try to be more inclusive of the people around you. It won't take much, I promise. Just look someone in the eye and say, "Good morning," and mean it. Take a few extra moments with the people you love and listen a little more closely to what they're trying to tell you. Offer a hug or a firm handshake if need be. Our religion calls us to do this work. Imagine how much better the world would be if everyone felt that they belonged. People would feel less isolated, less anxious, and perhaps there would be much less violence in the world. Now that's a world I will work to create, and all of us here will too. To this day, I carry that feeling I had at General Assembly all those years ago. My wife says it's when I had my zealous religious conversion. It's literally led to where I am today, in front of you all talking about this. And as you're going around over the course of your day, tell the people sitting next to you that I belong here. I invite you to greet people at coffee hour with this phrase. Certainly you are welcome here. You decide if you belong here. May you feel the warmth of embrace of every you who affirms the dignity and worth of every person, including you. On this Valentine's Day, don't worry so much about the candy, the flowers, the jewelry, or any other trinket that Hallmark might be trying to sell you. Just remind those that are closest to you how you feel about them. Who do you belong with? Who belongs with you? We belong with each other. Amen and blessed be.